So just to give a brief background, Circular Innovation Lab is a think tank based in Denmark, and our expertise lies in engaging and facilitating dialogue between key stakeholders at a strategic level and working towards accelerating the transition towards a circular economy globally. We have worked in the area of circular economy with the United Nations, with IDEO, Ellen MacArthur Foundations. We had also prepared a national roadmap for India and advised the UK Foreign Office and Chatham House, and also the Taiwanese government on their national strategies on circular economy. In specific sectors, we have worked in textiles and plastics. In the New Plastics Initiative, we worked on the India context as well as the European context. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arpit. Michael?
Thank you, John, and good morning, everyone. Happy to be here as well. My name is Michael Koech. I am, for this session, with the KEPSA, a member with the KEPSA board on environment, but currently working with Safaricom, doing a lot of stuff on environment and climate change. So I think the main reason why I'm here is because of some of the projects that we are doing with KEPSA as well as within Safaricom around circular economy, particularly focusing on waste management as well as electronic waste recycling. And happy to be here and share a bit more on circular economy and probably what we are doing as an example. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, Augustine.
Thank you very much, John. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Augustine Kendujwa. I work with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry as a Deputy Director for Climate Change Information and Knowledge Management. I'm also a coordinator of the ministerial program called the Green Growth and Employment Program within the Ministry of Environment. I'm tasked with the coordination of green and circular economy activities within the ministry. I've had a chance to travel to Copenhagen and got trained at the DTU, that's the Technical University of Denmark, where I was able to go through the theory and the practical part of green and circular economy. So I'm currently coordinating green and circular economy within the ministry, and also a member of P4G, that is Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030. I was among the discussant during the 3GF, which gave birth to P4G. 3GF was the Global Green Growth Forum, which was also coordinated along the same lines as P4G. So thank you very much. I'm here particularly to share what the government is currently doing as we shift our economy towards green and circular. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Pleased to be here this morning. My name is Faith Ngige. For this context, I am the coordinator for the New Plastics Economy project. I'm equally the focal point for the Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals in Kenya. In my day-to-day work, I work at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and I coordinate the Environment, Water, Natural Resources Sector Board. And said by Mr. Augustine about the Green Growth and Employment Program, I am one of the implementers, coordinators for Component 1 that seeks to find a conducive environment for private sector to invest in sustainable natural resources and green growth. I am equally an alumni of the Green Growth and Circular Economy training from DTU in Denmark. So as far as the new plastics economy is concerned, Mr. John has given a brief overview, but basically it's a partnership that was started in the year 2018 under the Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals platform. This partnership was born out of the need to find a sustainable solution for plastic waste management in Kenya, and in particular the PET bottle. It has 10 implementing partners. So KEPSA is the coordinator. The administrator is the Center for Clean Air Policy, which is based in Chile. Then we have the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Nairobi County, Kiambu County. We have Petco Kenya, Coca-Cola, Discover Brands, which works in partnership with Qtron and Tech for Trade. We have the RITRA, the Retail Trade Association of Kenya, the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, KCIC, Basic Group, and the Danish Strategic Sector Corporation. So we have been working a journey of starting the startup of circular economy in Kenya, in particular, just in trying to find out if there's a business model behind circularity and how can this actually be realized. And it's been an interesting journey, and we are happy to share our experiences together with you, even as we contextualize circularity for Kenya. Thank you so much and welcome again.
All right, thank you so much, Faith, for that introduction. Thank you all our speakers for those lovely introductions. So before we get started, I'll just like to share a reminder that in case your microphone is on, please, we are kindly asking you to mute yourself so that we can be able to get a very interesting listening experience. So now my first question will go to Mr. Arpit Bhurani. Mr. Arpit Bhurani, I know you might have a presentation to share very briefly as you respond to this question. Briefly highlight the emerging global trends in circular economy and how they contribute towards economic growth. So I think in responding to that, Mr. Arpit, I will allow you to share your screen so that you can be able maybe to speak, you may be able to speak through this. So Arpit.
Thank you.
Second. Okay, there you go, Arpit.
Right, sorry, just a minute. Right, I'll just quickly start off with a little bit information on circular economy and then go to the global trends and then on the plastics side of it. Since the Industrial Revolution, as you can see, we've been following the take, make, dispose model. We have been taking the resources from the planet, making it into different products and disposing it off. Circular economy is a kind of a solution which is win-win for both the environment and the businesses, as it is restorative, regenerative, and profitable by design itself. If you look at these two cycles, on the left-hand side is the biological cycle and the right-hand side is the technical cycle. On the biological side is all of the resources that we input it and are out, referring to agriculture and animal feed. And on the right-hand side is the technical cycle, which is relating to products, recycling, refurbishing, redistributing, and reusing. As long as much as these cycles are tighter, the lesser are the negative externalities. So we have to always focus on having the tighter cycles to ensure the loops are closed and there is less leakage into the environment. Often we always confuse circular economy with a recycling economy. This infographic has been something I've used always to explain it as easy as possible. So if you look at very carefully, recycling economy recycles once, or maybe not even once sometimes, it still produces less waste than the linear economy, but more waste than the circular economy. When it comes to circular economy, all the R's, the recycle, return, repair, and reuse are used, and there is zero waste. This actually proves the concept of zero waste to wealth. If we look at the different models, business models around circular economy, basically there could be around 6, which is recycling, reusing, repair, redesigning, remanufacturing, and sharing. So as I said before, circular economy is not just something that just makes environmental sense, but also economic sense. And private sector would have no hesitancy to adopt it if we actually show value-added evidence that circular economy reduces costs and increases profits. And if you look at the global macroeconomic estimates as per by the Waste to Wealth report by Accenture, by 2030, circular economy would contribute around 4 trillion euros to the global GDP. And by 2050, it would contribute around 21 trillion euros. That's a very substantial number. When we talk about innovation, all of this is not possible without innovation. If we have to achieve these numbers, if we have to achieve global growth, we need to focus on technology, economy, environment, and government. And when they all meet together, that's when circular economy innovation happens. The global trends which are recently happening are, first of all, a lot of these countries are having national roadmaps. We've done that for India, and we're also in discussions with some Latin American countries for that. There is a new trend of doing economic modeling in terms of business as usual versus reform scenario. This actually helps public policy and also the businesses to take informed decision on what actually they're going to be saving and how much are we going to save the environment also. There are also a lot of regional pacts on circular economy that are coming up, such as the one in Latin America and in Europe. There are also industry pacts, which are specific to sectors such as textiles and plastics. We are all aware about the European Circular Economy Package. A lot is being done in the case of trade in circular economy products, which is going to unleash massive growth in international trade. All of this in the end requires a lot of regulation changes. So a lot of legal and regulation changes are also happening all over the world. When we look at plastics per se, if we look at the diagram carefully, in 1964 we were producing around only 15 million ton per year, and by 2014 we are producing 311 metric tons, which is a substantial 20 times increase. I mean, we're not saying that plastics are bad. Plastics insulate our houses, make our cars lighter, protect our food. Plastics is a wonderful material. We've just unfortunately not managed it well. Let us presume, I mean, these are 2016 figures. 78 million tons was produced in 2016. If you look at very carefully, 40% of that was landfill, 32% was leaked into the environment, and 14% was incinerated. Out of which, another 14% was collected for recycling. Only 4%, only 2% was closed loop recycling. 8% was cascaded recycling with negative externality, and 4% had processes losses. So what do we do? In order to have a plastics economy, we need to have three major things. We need to create an after-use plastics economy where secondary materials can be used again and again. We need to reduce the leakage of plastics into natural systems and have negative externalities. And we need to, for most, decouple plastics from fossil feedstocks. But how do we do that? We do that with a call to action where a plastics pact could be done between the government, plastics industry, FMCG. An experience in that case could be taken from other global initiatives. For instance, we are a member of the European Plastics Pact. Another plastics pact is being implemented in India lately. And there's another one which is coming in Africa. If we do something kind of a plastics pact, it really shows the industry that they're involved in the process. In our experience in dealing with the industry on plastics issue, they get really worried because they're not usually being a part of the process. So when we take them on board, it's easier to get a decision and to make it forward. Actually, because they know about plastics the most, we cannot keep them out. They are the people who are actually using that. This is our team, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Arpit, for your presentation and speaking through your response through the presentation. And I think he was able to demonstrate how elaborate circular economy is, which is not purely just recycling, but it's more than recycling, because for every material, we're trying to find the highest value for it. You might discover that the highest value is not recycling it, but maybe it's reusing it. So that is what we need to explore in order to understand circularity much more better. And now to bring the whole conversation home, I'd like to bring in Michael Koech. Now, Michael and your organization, Safaricom, you are doing a lot when it comes to circular economy. Of course, you've picked up one of the elements of circularity that you're working on, for example, like recycling. So Michael, please, if you can you briefly highlight, can you just briefly highlight exactly what you are doing currently at Safaricom and shed more light about circularity and how you see it as an organization in Safaricom? Michael.
Hi, John.
Oh, Karibu, Michael, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so thank you very much, John, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you through, probably because I'm in here today about as a representative from the private sector. So probably I would want to look at a few drivers into the circular economy, what would take the private sector into the circular economy, look a bit about the barriers that are there, and then give a few examples of what we've done as an organization, if that is agreeable with you.
Absolutely, Michael, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think, and thank you, the first presenter, I think, has given us an elaborate sort of explanation of what this circular economy is all about and why it is important. I think clearly for private sector, there are few drivers that makes us to think about circularity as a whole. And the key among this is, of course, a stressed environment. If you look at where we are living in today, there's a lot of pollution, and we've seen from the previous presentation, there's plastic pollution, there's pollution of land, there's pollution of rivers. So a circular economy would look more, into how do we close that loop? How do we make what we would ordinarily call waste into a resource to do something else? And I think that's key. There's also the issue of land degradation, big in this country, big for Kenya. We've seen deforestation. We've seen issues of global warming. The temperatures are rising. It's because of what we do. And it's because we are not circular in the way we do things. And this in a world presents a threat to biodiversity. There's also the issue of limited resources. So what we used to get in yesteryears as raw materials for our manufacturing, for our products, we've seen limited, we've seen that diminishing. There's also the whole drive of sustainable development goals. SDG 12 specifically looks into sustainable consumption and production, and there are a lot of targets that have been set through the SDGs around that we need to consume sustainably, we need to produce as well sustainably. There's also depletion of natural resources. If you look at the countries that used to do, that used to be rich in raw materials, for example, South Africa, we've seen the issue of oil in the Middle East. There's actually depletion, and that brings us into what do we do next? And that is why circular economy is really important. There's also the issue of prices of natural resources. We've seen more and more all the raw materials that we use in our industries are actually getting more expensive. So circular economy presents that option of looking at what is in the current raw materials, what is in the waste that otherwise could have gone to the landfill. Can we extract something of value out of that? There's also the issue of health, even as you extract your materials, the health and safety issues involved, and generally the growing population. If you look at the current population compared to 10 years ago, for example, it has led to increased demand for raw materials. And I've seen statistics saying that if we continue with the current trends in terms of consumption, as our population increase, we might actually require 3 planets to satisfy our current demand. And so that's why the concept of circularity is really important. The issue of policy, and I know Kenduyo will talk about a lot about policy, but I think the current policies within government, within the private sector actually needs that drive for circular economy, as well as the regulations that will allow us, give us more incentives to do circularity. But however, we also have some barriers to this. And I think the first presentation has talked really about the design of the products. When you look at the current products, probably they are not designed to be circular or to be reused or to be refurbished or to be repaired. So I think generally at the moment there is lack of industry standards and definitions of what is safe, what is reliable, and what is quality in terms of the materials that you get out of a circular economy. I think also there is generally lack of knowledge about circular design and alternatives that are required. For example, when you look at issues to do with durability as well as repairability, would you be comfortable, for example, to buy something from the market that has been repaired, whose life has been lengthened through refurbishment? That is the bigger question, and it's also a barrier. I think even within our organizations, we've really not prioritized circular products as part of our strategy, and so that presents a challenge as well. Coming to demand in terms of barriers as well, demand for circular products and services, I think generally is still low. Many of our consumers, they need to see the latest technology. They want to get the latest in the market. And so there's really limited demand in terms of what people would actually purchase. And I think that's a barrier, that presents a barrier for both private sector and also for the consumers in terms of demand and also pushing for circular economy. I think among private sector, which is still a big issue, and also, there are limited options and capabilities for repairing and refurbishment. It needs more training. It needs more expertise in the market to actually do repairs and lengthen the life cycle of products. There's also the issue around distribution and use of circular products. I think there are still challenges around there. The lack of value chain collaboration and transparency for running successful circular business models. If you look at, for example, in Kenya, most of the industries, SMEs that are involved in circular economy, they are really still a bit gray. We don't really understand. There's no much transparency. Where do they get these materials from? How is the traceability of what what they recycle or what they reuse? So there are still challenges around that. And lastly, or second last, there is also the take back and collection, take back and collection systems, which are still complicated. We don't have, globally, even we don't have clear regulations on what to do. There are also no incentives, for example, to bring in products for recycling generally. And people demand more and more of that. We have in Kenya, we have legislations, draft legislations around take back and collection, but still they haven't been approved. It has taken a bit of time, and we really hope that should be able to, we should be able to make the process a bit more faster so that we have this to come into fruition. There is also a lack of mechanisms for safe recycling. There are a lot of health and safety issues around recycling, whether you are talking about waste, whether you are talking about electronic waste, for example. There are things that gets out of the pipe products that gets out of that, which presents health and safety issues for the employees, as well as health issues for the environment. I think in terms of recycling and sourcing, the current market prices for recycled materials may not be that stable, it may not be predictable, and so it doesn't make it any better for private sector or potential investors to come into it. So if you can allow me, I can give you an example of a few things that we've done within Safaricom, and I will start with solid waste. Of course, I know as an organization, probably we are not the biggest generators of waste, so to say, compared to many, but within our facilities, we've also tried to demonstrate this through a proper waste management. So the overall goal for this is actually to ensure zero waste to landfill. And that is what circular economy is all about. So we do a lot in terms of mechanics. We have an integrated waste management policy, which looks at ensuring that we close the loop. We've also had an end-to-end e-waste management for the organization. Looking at the industry where we are, we generate a lot of electronic waste, and so it is our responsibility. Being part of the problem, we should also be part of the solutions. We've managed to segregate our waste, especially within our main facilities. So we have segregation bins all over. There's a lot of training and behavioral and culture change that has to go with that. So we have waste bins for organic waste, food waste mainly, paper, and plastics, which are, the major ones that we have for our organization, as well as electronic waste bins, which we've placed in all our shops and facilities. We do segregate waste from source. And then we also have a secondary waste segregation area for probably waste that is not well segregated. We have different color-coded bins so that it makes it stick into the minds of people. We are working with partners in the waste management to ensure that all the waste streams are actually properly collected, not mixed during transportation, and then it gets into the recyclers. So plastics would go to plastic recyclers, metal waste would go to metal waste, electronic waste will go to electronic waste recyclers, and organic waste are actually composted, and then we have partnerships with farmers around Kiambu County who are actually picking up our organic waste. So what has been the result? We are proud to say that at least in our main facilities, 97% of our waste is actually getting recycled. Only 3% we haven't really gotten a home for them, and they still go to the dump sites. We've, over the years, managed to recycle 1072, over 1,000 tons actually of electronic waste, which has actually presented positive health and safety impact, on the environment. And out of that as well, we've been able to save a lot in terms of greenhouse gas emissions that gets out of waste recycling. Of course, there are challenges around that. The waste recycling industry in Kenya is not really adequate. The regulations are still at draft form, and so we are hoping that this process will be completed soon, so that it makes and gives that good environment for circular economy. We are also a plastic-free, or we strive to be a plastic-free organization. We phased out single-use plastics, I think, even before the legislation came in. We ensure that all our staff carry recycle or reusable water bottles, which was actually one of the biggest sources for single-use plastics in our case. And then we've also managed to design some of our products. For example, the size of our SIM card, if you've purchased one from Safaricom of late, actually the plastic in there has been reduced by half. And out of that, we've been able to remove quite a bit of plastics from our operations as we move along. And that also comes with savings. For example, out of the SIM card alone, we were able to reduce our plastics from 2,500 tons, and we also managed to save about 50 million Kenya shillings in terms of, the cost of manufacturing the SIM cards. So, John, I think I would stop at that, and then I'll hand it over back to you, and I should be able to pick up any questions as we move along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michael, for that very elaborate response to the question. And I think you've also been able to speak through the numerous pillars for circularity. I think you've spoken about keeping materials at their highest value when you're reusing or recycling or whatever it is that you've chosen. You've also spoken about the health issues to do with circularity. And you've also touched upon legislation. And of course, you've also touched upon the biodiversity that we need to protect or even restore while we are doing or using materials. And in a way, you spoke heavily about legislation and policy. And this makes me invite Mr. Augustine Kendewo. Of course, I wanted to open it up for a few questions, but allow me now just to straight away go to Mr. Augustine Kendewo, and then we will get a couple of 2 or 3 questions, and then maybe Faith can come on and respond to a question which we have for her. So when it comes to that, I just want to pose this question to Mr. Augustine Kendewo. Augustine, the Kenya government has put in place frameworks for transitioning the country to green growth and a circular economy pathway. You spoke about that. So what are these frameworks and how adequate are they, Augustine?
Yes, John, thank you very much. I hope my internet will not give me some problems. I hope I'll be able to be heard throughout the session. But nonetheless, thank you very much. As I said earlier on, my name is Augustine Kindujwa. And John, actually, something very important. Unless we have good policies and regulations that can transition a country towards shifting towards the green and circular economy, it will become very difficult to even imagine how to start. Nonetheless, the government of Kenya recognizes the fact that it is very beneficial for us to transition towards green and circular economy in our businesses. Because one, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 recognizes that our economy is natural resource based, and therefore these natural resource based are limited, and unless we take care of them in a more efficient manner, then our economy as a country can crumble. So because of that, the government has recognized the need to ensure that we become more efficient in terms of resource use. So actually this brings us now to what have we done as a government. Even after the Constitution 2010 has highlighted the fact that we need to really preserve our natural resources. So in the year 2014, the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources then, which is currently the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, together with UNEP, commissioned a study to see are there benefits if this country could be steered towards low carbon development pathway. And during that time in 2014, a report actually was developed, which is a Green Economy Assessment Report of 2014, which stipulated that there is a lot of benefits if this country could transition towards green and circular economy. So it recommended that there is need to develop a strategy to guide the players within the country in transitioning. So a document was developed, and that is a very popular document called GESIP. I know quite a number of participants might have come across them, across the book. The policy document is Green Economy Strategy and Implementation Plan. This Green Economy Strategy and Implementation Plan has identified 5 thematic areas which can transition this country towards a low carbon development pathway or green and circular economy pathway. So the first thematic area identified is promoting sustainable infrastructure. So I think John and colleagues, you must have had a lot happening within the transport sector. You've heard about bus rapid transport, the BRT system. You've had a lot happening in agriculture infrastructure, in terms of climate smart agriculture, in terms of greening the agriculture transformation strategy document. And you've also had a lot happening in the water sector, We've had a lot happening in the energy sector. We've had a lot happening in the building sector. All these were identified under the CESEP document under thematic area number 1. Thematic area number 2 is about building resilience. Again, we realize as a country that climate change is having a tall order in terms of our development agenda. So as a government, we developed this document and identified areas where we are supposed to build resilience, both resilience of the people towards climate change impacts and also resilience of the economy itself. Then under thematic area number 3 of this document is talking about sustainable natural resource management. Now here we've identified as a government that there is need to first of all to increase our tree cover or our forest cover, and we have developed a strategy. It's called for a tree cover strategy, which aims at increasing our tree cover to 10%, from current around 7% to around 10%. So this is something that is currently ongoing within the ministry, and we are encouraging other stakeholders to participate in increasing our tree cover percentage. So there's a strategy towards that. And then, of course, we are also working towards developing a document called Water Tower Management Strategy. So this document will support the counties to ensure that the counties that surround the water towers, to ensure that they manage their water tower very well. So that one was identified under thematic area number 3. And then if you go to thematic area number 4, which is very popular, and that is the resource efficiency. Sustainable, it's called promoting resource efficiency. Now, this resource efficiency, if you read that document and go to strategic objective 4.3, where we're managing waste as a resource, a lot is currently ongoing. For example, in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, through an engagement with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, that is KEPSA, and Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we've been able, and many other stakeholders, we have been able to develop our first sustainable solid waste management policy and bill, an electronic waste management strategy. These documents have already been approved by the cabinet. The first cabinet, that's the committee of the cabinet committee on development and implementation, chaired by Honorable Matiang'i. That one has already been, at that stage, it has already been approved. Now it's waiting for the full cabinet. Once it's endorsed by the full cabinet, it goes to Parliament. And I think this is a document that that really talks about circularity a lot. So we are trying to now change the way we are disposing our waste from the linear kind of model, which has just been discussed by some speakers ahead of me, into circularity. And that is something that already even the private sector have started engaging in. Actually, this document, although it has not gone through the process and be made into law, for us, our happiness is from the fact that there's a lot of enthusiasm from the wider population and private sector and the public sector to implement the policy and the bill. Although it has not gone through the final stages, you can see a lot of segregation at waste, a lot of circularity in terms of waste management, circular economy coming in terms of plastics, and many other things like that. So already, we have also developed an action plan with Nairobi Metropolitan Service in order to assist Nairobi County to manage their waste. So there's an action plan, which again, as a ministry, we are going to roll out within the Nairobi City County, and we are going to support the Nairobi City County to implement the plan. Aside from that, if you go to, then again, around issues of waste management, there is something called extended producer responsibility. I know it is known by quite a number of people who are well-versed with circular economy that EPR, or extended producer responsibility, is key in ensuring that we take ownership of whatever produce that we produce. So here, what we are talking about as a ministry is we are engaging the private sector, that is KEPSA and CAM, plus other stakeholders, as we develop the regulations towards that. Already, we are currently working on the legal aspects of the EPR regulations, and we've gotten a lot of comments from stakeholders. Now we are inputting the comments, and then from there we take the we take the regulations forward. So that is currently what you are doing under that. You've had the ministry spearheading the single-use plastics. We ban already, we've already banned. If you are in the airport, you hear, before you land, you hear that if you're having your plastic polythene, plastic papers, please ensure that it should not find their way to the country. So because we've already banned, and we are working very closely with the private sector. For one, if there is one country in this world that really embraces the private sector, I think it is the government of Kenya. We really value the private sector, and we don't do anything unless we engage properly with the private sector and find solutions together. So we really value the private sector through KEPSA and also through CAM in terms of manufacturing, and we are working well. We are working very well with them. So there are quite a number of documents that we are developing as a ministry and also as a country. I know various sectors like agriculture, they are developing their policies towards sustainable development, towards circular economy, transport the same, energy in terms of renewable energy, building, housing. They're also doing a lot in terms of resource use efficiency, developing green buildings and things like that. Now, there's something that Mr. Michael Koech mentioned when he was speaking about the demand. The demand on green and circular products. As a government, what we have done is currently we are working on a document, a policy document called Green Public Procurement Framework. We are coming up with a green public procurement framework because we thought as a government, we really do a lot of procurement, we do a lot of purchasing. And if as a government we go towards green, purchasing green, then we are likely to create a demand for the green products. And therefore we are likely to increase the switch from the normal brown products to the green products. So that is something we are developing at the moment. And we are doing it together again with private sector, we're doing it together with other stakeholders. The document has not been released yet. It is still under consultant and is going around actually getting views from holders. If they have not come to you, I know they will come to you because you have not even subjected it to, they have not finalized the draft. They're still working on it. So we realize that if we go this way as government, we are likely to trigger demand because we really procure heavy as government. And if today as government we say we can only procure environmentally friendly products and services, then I'm very sure it will trigger the manufacturers to move towards that. We will work very closely with KEPSA so that we identify how are we going to even standardize, what kind of standards are we going to set so that we can even do what we call eco-labeling, where we can come up with an eco-label products which can now be consumed by the public sector. So that is what we are currently doing. Again, we are working very closely with KEPSA to develop a framework that can assist, that can identify and assist the transitioning of businesses towards green. So again, that one is something that we have just issued out to a consultant. Again, he will go around and he'll try to engage with KEPSA and other stakeholders to ensure that we have a framework to transition our businesses towards green and circular economy. We are also targeting our policy makers, and we are also developing something called a green and circular economy toolkit for policymakers, so that even as they do their policies, they are able to identify the green economy and green and circular economy actions that can actually be reflected within their policies. So again, that's a toolkit that we are developing, and it will be used mainly by the policymakers to transition their policies towards green and circular economy. You've heard about green bonds. So we are working again very closely with the National Treasury to develop what we call a green bonds framework. So that again, we try and see how do we build capacities of industries to be able to access green financing to move their production towards a green and circular economy in a very easy way in terms of getting green finance to do that. So that's something that we are also working on together with the National Treasury. recently, we worked very closely with KEPSA and we created their national business agenda. Usually they have they are currently on their third national business agenda, which is an agenda that guides how KEPSA actually undertake their activities. So we've held a discussion together through Faith Ngige, and we're able to create the document. Now we have a green national business agenda that will actually guide how private sector can actually undertake their activities in a green manner. So there's a lot that is happening within the government. There's a lot that is going on. Already the document, the CESEP document, we have already implemented. Although currently, as I'm speaking, we held a meeting with the World Bank on Tuesday, and there's a program that is coming. It's called Financing Locally Led Climate Action, which will now go down to the counties to have an engagement with the counties to see how we can now transition this implementation on climate change up to the local level. And in this, we made sure that issues of green and circular economy find their way. And within this kind of program, we are going to now look critically on the CESEP document and be able to come up with what we call green and circular economy policy that will now guide the implementation properly on the green economy strategy and implementation plan. So those are the things that are going on. We are also engaging very well with P4G under the plastics economy, and we are open as government to identify together and come up with policies that will really shift our development agenda towards green and circular economy. It is a dear thing, a dear pathway to the government, and we are ready, and we are there to make sure that we come up with policies that will support this kind of venture. Thank you very much. I'll be able to also maybe answer a few questions that will be there going forward. Thank you so much, Michael and colleagues.
All right, thank you so much, Augustine, for that elaborate presentation as well. And I think through your presentation, you are able to respond to one question which was posed by Mr. John Wandaka, who in the chat had actually asked what are some of the hindrances to circularity. And I think you've spoken about some of the policies which are in the making that will be able to transition us to that direction. And in your presentation, I think you've also spoken about the Sustainable Waste Management Bill, still a bill, awaiting to go through the entire process. And I believe that will also be another landmark piece of legislation that can be able to help us and go the circular direction. I know it's been a while since Mr. Arpit spoke, Michael spoke, and I know we still have Faith to come, but I just wanted to open it up just for a couple of minutes for two questions before I let Faith speak. So now this is the rare opportunity for you, the listeners, whoever has a question, to just pose a question to the speakers. And after that, be careful to make sure that you you mute your microphone after you speak. So I'm opening it up because this is a dialogue. It's not as much as the speakers are specialists, but we also believe that you as the public, you also experience this. And when the speakers speak, obviously, they're supposed to be sharing this information so that you can be able to introspect on what they're speaking, look at what you're currently doing in your businesses or in your homes or in your communities, and see what you can be able to change or implement, or who you are able to collaborate with so that circularity becomes complete. So for that purpose, in case any one of you has a question, so please, this is the rare opportunity. I will let you unmute yourself, say your name, pose your question to one of the speakers, mute yourself, and then the speaker will be able to respond to you. So here we go. The first one, please.
Hi, John. Can I go ahead?
Hello, Peter. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Thank you, John. Thank you. First of all, let me thank John for organizing this, and I've been looking forward to joining, because circular economy is a key sector that we as the private sector, we are focusing on. So for me, after the compliment is just maybe to Mr. Agustin Kendoyo. First of all, thanks a lot, Agustin, for always being very, very fluent in terms of, your work, very committed and very fluent, and really putting to us and sharing with us what the great things that the ministry is doing, especially through CCT. But I've just have a quick look at the Ministry of Environment website and looked at when the former CS, met a delegation from Israel. Those people, there was a team that came from Israel who wanted to invest on issues of solid waste management. And the CS even mentioned that the Andorra dump site can be converted to a recreational park. So my question to Augustine is that what is the position of the national policy to guide circular economy? Is there anything that has started, or what is the progress? I know you mentioned some good work being done by the ministry, but maybe it skipped my focus, the position of the national, a legal framework to guide, because I know, the much I know is that currently there's none. And also if there's a national strategy to guide this important sector. That is to Augustine. Then to Mike Koech, who is my co-chair of climate change at KEPSA. I know Safaricom, the intensive users of ICT, that is the EEE, electrical and electronic equipment. And circular economy is a key focus that Safaricom is having. But in this process, what are the outcoming products, that Safaricom is producing that can be used by, people in the private sector? Because you see, when you recycle ICT equipment, this ICT equipment they have some methods that can be reused in manufacturing or doing other things. And the other question to Michael Koech is in terms of, there's a lot of fake phones, fake ICT equipment that are coming into the country. And I don't know what's the agenda of Safaricom in terms of certifying that what you buy and use is of good quality. Thank you, John.
Okay, I think Augustine, you can take that.
You want me to answer straight away?
Yes, straight away, crisp, very crisp.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Peter Olo, for asking that question. Actually, the Andorra's dump site has been really, a thorn in the flesh, both for the government of the national government and the county government of Nairobi. But Peter Olo, I know you will agree with me that sometimes some of these waste management dump sites are not very easy things that you can just walk in and start implementing something unless you have a strategy. So basically, as you said, we are actually developing a strategy to see how we could address the issue of the Andorra dump site. One, many investors have come, and what they are actually, their designs is to convert the waste in Andorra into energy through incineration. There's a lot of talk that we have held, and we have really tried to see the pros and cons of turning the waste into the energy through incineration. And we have been asking ourselves, this waste in Andorra, if we put up an incinerator, actually this waste will be consumed within a very short time. What will happen to the incinerator? Where will we get the waste now to burn, to continuously burn? Is there a better way of addressing the issue of Andorra other than incineration? So there are many investors who have come, but most of the time they come through issues of converting the Andorra dump site into an energy producing site through incineration, which has not been very, very popular within the green and circular economy proponents. So I think that is one area where that's why we have not done much there. Currently, as I said in my talk, I talked about us engaging with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, and we've already developed an action plan to implement waste management within the Nairobi County. And one of the discussion now will be how do we address the issue of Andorra? So it is something that will be done in collaboration with the Nairobi City County, together with the NMS, that's the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, and the Ministry of Environment. So when we reach there, we have not started yet, but when we reach there, I can assure you we are likely to come up with a strategy that will now address the issue of the Andorra dump site. Thank you very much.
Okay, Michael,
thank you,
you have a minute.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Michael,
Augustine.
you have a minute to respond to Peter's question about the number of fake phones which are coming in. And maybe just to supplement that particular question is that, when you have inferior products coming into the market, they get spoiled very quickly and they generate waste materials also very quickly. So if we don't have a concrete solution for that particular material, we keep on piling it up very quickly. And I think electronic and electrical products have been the biggest culprits. So Michael, if you may respond to that. I know I won't give you so much time, a couple of minutes. Please respond to that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. And thank you, Peter, for your question. And so because of time, I'll go straight into the first product. What are some of the outcoming products from our electronic waste? So as you may, for Safaricom, the biggest focus for now is being an ICT company, is the mobile phones. You might be aware that we have about 36 million, gadgets in the country at the moment, phones only, and the technology keeps on changing. So what we've done for electronic waste is we've identified a partner to do recycling on our behalf, and we've been working together and supporting the partner. So when you want to bring in your phone, we've made our Safaricom shops, which are well spread across the country, to be collection centers, as well as our main facilities and a few of our agents. So when you get in there, you drop your phone, and then the phone will then be picked up and then transported to a recycling facility. The phone will be clean. Of course, the data is cleaned up, and then it's dismantled into different products. So we will have plastics, you will have batteries, you have some parts that are metallic in nature, and also there are precious metals that comes out of that, including gold and copper in most cases. So all these have a home somewhere. So the metal will normally go to the metal smelters. The plastics will go to the plastic handlers. There are poles, fantastic poles that comes out of metal. And then the precious metals, at the moment in Kenya, we don't have the technology to remove some of that. So our partner, which is the We Center, works with other partners in Europe now to sort of extract the precious metals, and then they are reused to make new equipment as well. The issue of fake phones, fake electronics, I think it's a big thing for Kenya and for the industry as well. But for us, we work with reputable organizations. So for the phones that we sell, for example, in our shops, we actually work closely with our supply chain to ensure that we work with reputable organizations. We understand their environmental credentials. We look at the product life cycle, the repairability of the material, and also the recycling once it gets into the end of life. So we, as much as possible, try and ensure that we close the loop in terms of getting the right products for our market. Of course, as Kenduyo has said, there's a lot within the regulations once they come out that will sort of regulate the issue of fake products that are getting into the country. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for responding to that.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for that. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Michael, also for responding to that question. So I think there were two questions responded to. So what I'm going to do right now is any other further questions, I will reserve them at the end, because we have our lady who is yet to speak, Madam Faith Ngigo of the New Plastics Economy Kenya coordinator. So I'd like Faith to get ready, because she has a question to respond to. And the question to Faith is, the New Plastics Economy Kenya has been at the forefront of championing for a circular approach for management of materials. What lessons have you learned, and what kind of recommendations can you give, especially if you were to touch upon the known pillars of circular economy for economic growth? So Faith, can you respond to that?
Thank you, John, for the opportunity, and I think I will try as much as possible to limit myself to to the implementation bit, because my previous speakers have really laid down the ground of what Kenya has been going through in the last, let me just say for the last couple of years, but more intensely the last 2 years, and where we are at the moment. So as I previously said, the new plastics economy is a partnership that was established to be able to find out the circular approach to solving the PET waste challenge. However, once we began the process, we realized that in Kenya, because we do not segregate our waste at source, and therefore the PET bottle is mixed up with the rest of the waste. And therefore that meant that what we tried to focus on at first as the PET bottle was a problem, became like we now dealing with a bigger problem than just a bottle. We also found ourselves in a situation where the regulatory environment currently, much as there are many documents being prepared, most of them are yet to come into fruition. And therefore the regulatory environment has been a challenge because much as you want a very clean PET, the kind of technology you're using for the recycling of the PET into filament and 3D models requires a very clean bottle. And therefore getting that clean bottle has not been the easiest. We found ourselves in challenges of collection systems. Do we put bins in public spaces? What should be done at the household level and all that? Lucky enough, it's a time when producers were organizing themselves, and therefore they had started a voluntary producer responsibility organization, that is PETCO. And working through the journey with PETCO, we've really managed to see some of the challenges that are there within the circularity. The other big challenge has been the issue of the PET bottle by itself in its, how it is designed right now. It is not designed for reuse. Some of the materials cannot even be recycled. There are complex materials within the PET bottle. The color is a challenge. We need a clear bottle. Sometimes they are mixed up and the materials are complicated. And therefore, much as we thought we are recycling, we found ourselves faced with more complex challenges than we actually thought we were beginning with. The issue of just the technology itself. It's been a journey to find the technology in Kenya, and I must commend Discover Brands and Qtron and Tech for Trade for their tenacity for the last 2 years to set up a testing facility at Nairobi University just to test and see if a PET bottle can actually be recycled in Kenya. That's not an easy assignment, and we are just glad and happy that this week we really actually eventually recycled a PET bottle in Kenya into a filament that is very clean, that could eventually also be 3D printed. We also did not have the printers that are all over. Even if you get them globally, they will need to be customized to meet the Kenyan standard. They'll need to be customized to meet our filament, and therefore we have found ourselves in a situation where we have to innovate the infrastructure so that it is able to do what we are looking for. One of the things that you're now currently grappling with is the issue of the market for secondary products, as Michael said it very well. We are lucky that Kiambu County has given us an opportunity, and even you have Coca-Cola giving us a platform for the same. But to be able to scale up in terms of the investment that we have put in for the last 2 years, we need a bigger market. We need consumers being able to respond to a recycled product and valuing it in the same value as a product that has been used by virgin material. So it's been a journey, but some of the lessons that we've learned are as follows. One, you need leadership and strategic thought. What I like about what you've gone so far is the understanding that, and so far Mr. Augustine has managed to speak to that very well, that why it has not been easy to solve the waste management problem in Kenya is because government was trying to solve it by itself. Private sector is on its own in its own corner, and the consumer is also not even involved. And as a result, you wouldn't find a solution. But through the Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals platform that brought us together, government and private sector, just to speak and dialogue around this matter, we are able to align our vision, and there's now strategic leadership in the direction that we are taking. And that is part of the reason why you can hear a lot of strategies and documentation being prepared in partnership just to help us also be able to move forward. So vision and strategic alignment of minds is very important, because for me, transformation, first of all, takes place in the mind. It can't take place outside if the mind is not transformed. And therefore, I must say that Kenya, currently at the moment, both government and private sector, our mindset are transformed and we are ready for circularity. The next thing that we've learned is the issue of green production and eco-designs. As long as our production systems do not respect the issue of reuse, recyclability, refurbishment, it is hard to continue with the journey. And therefore, we need a conversation with the producers on how exactly they can be able to produce for zero waste. We've also learned the issue of shifting responsibility around waste management. For a long time, the waste management has been like, it's the responsibility of government to come and collect our waste. And therefore, citizens, we didn't feel like we were part of the problem. And even entities would feel like, I generate waste and government must come and take it in. This is changing with circularity and the issues of producer responsibility, that the responsibility is shifting across the value chain players, and we all must play a part. You learned the importance of research, the importance of innovation, and the importance of just being able to derive maximum value from resources. Just thinking through about that PET bottle has been very interesting to go through it together with, I call them the boys, but I really love the innovative minds. And therefore, for them not relenting that a PET bottle can become filament, and a filament can become a flake, and a flake can become a product. You can imagine the language I'm speaking today has just been wonderful. We've also learned about the power of partnerships and collaborations. You can't do circularity alone. You must be in relationship with the next value chain player. The producer must relate to the supplier. The supplier must relate to the consumer. The consumer must relate back with the producer, and that is how the loop is closed. And then we need the government to provide for us a regulatory environment that makes it possible for us to relate. It's also been interesting just to note that the consumer behavior needs to change. Our preference of virgin materials over recycled product will have to change if indeed circularity is going to be a reality even in Kenya. And therefore, what we've also learned is that closed loops is what will make circularity work. As long as we tried collection, it wouldn't work alone. We tried recycling, it wouldn't work alone. We needed the whole loop. We needed the producers, we needed the consumers, we needed the retailers, we needed the waste pickers, we needed the waste handlers, we needed the recyclers, we needed the people who give us the products, we need the importers and the producers. We all must just be in together. But above all, again, we have learned that capacity is important. You heard us introducing ourselves and saying we are alumni of the Denmark Technical University on Green and Circular Economy. We needed to be given capacity so that you even understand what you're doing. Because at times we all speak about circular economy without really looking into the technicalities of what this is all about. And therefore, it's been interesting just to get exposed to these principles and also getting partnerships, not just in Kenya, but across the globe, beyond the boundaries of Kenya. We are connected all the way to Washington through the P4G hub. We are connected all the way to Denmark. We are connected to Chile. And that is how this partnership has managed to do what it has done. The issue of financing and capital outlay has not been an easy one. To get that infrastructure into place is not easy. We are piloting the segregation of waste at Nyayo Estate. And currently at the moment, we've only managed to do 30 courts. The rest of the courts are still waiting, even as they anticipate what needs to be done. So there's a huge infrastructure outlay that needs to be put in place, both for collection system and also for recycling and even the technology around it. However, we haven't lost faith. We are happy that we have taken this path, and it's been wonderful learning the lessons. And we are committed working together with government and the rest of the partners just to ensure that Kenya indeed appreciates a circular economy. But above all is that the chain must work. For circularity to happen, then the chain must work. That's the biggest lesson, and we'll be sharing with you these lessons going forward. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Faith, for that very elaborate description about the new circular economy the new plastics economy and what you're currently doing. It's very elaborate and it speaks to so many things going on. And clearly what's come out is that there is the transformation of the mind, which is very necessary and key. And of course, there is also the issue to have that common vision about circularity. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we are having this call, is because we could be talking about circularity, but the way John understands circularity, the way Arpit understands circularity, the way Peter understands circularity is different. So when it's different, we have different goals and different ambitions. But when you bring the two together, you see now we have one complete vision. And even if it's to go together as a team to say that this is a kind of a policy or legislation that we want in place, we know exactly what we are talking about. And that's the beauty of having this dialogue. Thank you so much, Faith, for your presentation. And I think at this point, I'd like now to open it up for comments and mostly for questions, so that our speakers can be able to respond to the questions, to your questions. And then after that, we will be able to share with you our next steps, recommendations, and when you can be able to expect our new webinar. So I will open it up to the questions. So what you will do is you will unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then pose your question. Please make it very short so that we can be able to give as many people as possible an opportunity to be able to ask, because all of us are really involved in this. We've been doing something, maybe it's been incomplete, but now is the opportunity to understand how to complete the whole circle and to complete it in a more active way. So I will allow the first question. You unmute yourself.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. John. Okay.
Hello.
There is a gentleman called Kanake. Kanake, I think you'll go first. Please make your question very short and crisp so that we give a chance to somebody else. Mr. Kanake,
Yes.
go ahead.
Thank you, John. My name is Ephraim Kanake. I'm from Kara, Kenya Alliance of Resident Association. As a board member, I'm a treasurer there, and I've been very appreciative of this particular conversation taking place. My question and maybe observation in terms of what is happening now is that I am happy about what I can see and what I'm listening to, the circular economy. My concern is one, as having a background of the residents, the households, the many Kenyans who are here and who are listening to this conversation. The transformation expected for this green economy to take place requires that the whole lot of us are part of the conversation. Now, we could be talking now here through this webinar, but since last time when we met, I have not seen Dr. Macharia, but I think if he is there and Kedogo is there, I think I would like to say that we need to have this journey taking place continuously for the Kenyan people to be educated, informed, and communicated to through all the media channels we have, including print and tele. But this has not taken place yet. We are talking of policies being made. I am familiar with it. I'm in a process. I'm in a team that is dealing with this issue of even shutting down the Dadora site. But I want to say we have not been able to engage the Wajiku in this conversation properly so that the transformation is expected to take place. It will not be done in a webinar like this. It will not be done. It needs to be seen on the television. It needs to be seen on the papers. Something like a strategy to transform our mindset from the linear to the circular. I like the way Kedogo has put it. But are we really getting this conversation right into the heart of our people so that they are part of the process and the transformation? For the people, the residents, to start separating garbage at the source, we will need to have them to own it up, to take it up. Can we respond to that so that we can have some on the strategy. And I know Masharia is there, and we have been together dealing with this issue. But I want to, from this particular platform, get some kind of insight so that we can engage to see how fast we are going to now start responding and reaching out to the Wajiko down there on the circular economy. Thank you
very much, Mr. Kanake. And I think any of the speakers could have responded to that, but it seems like it's directly to Mr. Augustine Kendewo. But Augustine Kendewo, hold on to your microphone. We will take some more questions and then we'll come back to you. But now you know what your question is that you need to respond to. Basically, how do we communicate so that the people on the ground can be able to be involved and be actively engaged in segregation at source? Hold on to that while we take another question. So, second question, please.
Hello, Mr. John. And
Richard, hi, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Richard Kainika. I represent the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. Kenya Waste Recycling Association is the umbrella for businesses that are in the process of value from waste. And this, I want to say first of all that this is a very great engagement, and we are very grateful. Secondly, that I also want to direct a question also to Mr. Augustine in regards to the issue of infrastructure. I was reading a report by called the Breaking the Plastic Wave. This report indicated that globally 59% of plastic collection is contributed by the informal sector. And now the global statistics obviously are not exactly like what we have in Kenya. We know that in Kenya, waste mostly is done by the informal players. According to KEWR perspective, we have about 79% contribution by the informal sector. This involves the waste pickers, the kind of players that we would refer to as micro enterprises. Considering the issues that we are having in Kenya currently and the policy that guides and the regulations that are guiding these operations, it is in common knowledge that people are really experiencing a lot of challenges, and we want to commend the government and all the other players, especially in regards to the current legislation about sustainable waste management bill and policy, and even the extended producer responsibility legislation that is currently in the process. But what I want to draw attention to is what is happening currently. Yesterday, I attended a meeting by KEPSA once again with a lot of gratitude, and the NMS, Nairobi Metropolitan Services. And we set some goals that were going to about 100 days. And I want to ask Mr. Augustine whether perhaps from where the government perspective is, whether there is something that can be done at the moment, even as we wait for the legislation to be done, in regards to creating infrastructure to encourage more collection and recycling and engagements with also the industry, whether they get enacted, so that it can be easy for these micro enterprises, because these are people who are willing to work, these are people who are investing their money. Globally, obviously, at 59%, Kenya at 77%, it means that what we are discussing is in the hearts of the micro enterprises. And these are not people who can show up during board meetings. These are people who could very easily be sidelined by this kind of engagement. So my question is, and I want also to put something that I also had from another engagement that we had with CAMP, that one of the government representatives, that I don't want to name, said that the kind of people that the association represents are the micro enterprises, and that these are people who lack the government, the quality standard, what do you call it? The mark of quality. So in terms of market access, which is a serious problem to these enterprises, This senior person suggested that for those who don't have the mark of quality, we may not have any much to do about them. But then those who have the mark of quality, we can see what to do for them. But then if we look at this, if we are contributing at 77%, I don't think it is wise for these people to be assumed. So in terms of infrastructure and facilitation of this industry to grow, is the government able maybe to come in between the regulators and create some some systems that can absorb them, as we encourage them to come up and get compliant, as we encourage them to start to create structures in their operations, and this would be very helpful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Richard. I allowed you a bit of some extra time because you represent a very key industry when it comes to circularity to pose your questions. It seems like both your questions were also directed to Augustine. So those so far are 2 questions to Augustine, but I will ask Augustine to wait while we take another question. And I'd like to say there was Marion Maina who had unmuted herself, but she had to mute because somebody had gone ahead. Marion, if you're still on the call and if you remember your question clearly, please pose your question. And after that, we can also ask another question. Those will be 4 questions, and then the speakers can be able to respond to those 4 questions. So Marion, are you on the call to ask your question? Marion is not in a position to do so. So anybody else now, can you please pose your question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Akshay.
Yeah, so I'm in the plastics packaging manufacturing space, and a lot of my customers are not really, I would say, either sensitized or educated on what exactly does it mean to be 100% recyclable, when it comes to their packaging design. So my question is, what is being done to educate the entire FMCG and packaged, goods sector to understand, what is the meaning of being 100% recyclable, and then what is being done to sort of move those particular companies towards that type of packaging, either through regulatory or some other social influencing. I would be interested to understand what's being done in Kenya on that front. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Akshay. You didn't direct your question to a specific person, but I'm going to direct your question to 2 people. Faith, you will speak about what is currently being done in Kenya, and then maybe Mr. Arpit will speak about the global practices. So Mr. Augustine Kendewo, you will go first with a question about communication on circularity, and then you'll also respond to the second question by Mr. Richard Kainika, and then Faith and Arpit will respond to the last question by Mr. Akshay. So Augustine, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Although my internet was breaking, but I was able to get a few things here and there. And I hope you are also able to listen to what I'm saying. You're able to hear, what I'm saying. Thank you very much. I got to the question from Kanake from Kara about awareness campaigns.
Correct.
Yes, I think it is very true. We are engaging with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Actually, they have an RRI of 100 days. So what we have done as a ministry is to engage a PR firm. So we send out invitation for people who have experience in the public relation activities to come forward. And so far, we've identified a farm, actually a consortium of farms, 2 farms, who will actually be doing a lot of awareness creation as we implement the Nairobi Action Plan on Waste Management within the 100 days. So we are together with NMS, and we are going to have to call for all stakeholders. Actually, as a ministry, we will not do it with NMS alone, but we are going to call for all the stakeholders, including the waste handlers and the transporters. Actually, I don't know whether it can be seen on the screen. There is this thing here. I don't know how we can make it to be seen on the screen, but it is something to do with consultancy services to undertake for a PR firm to undertake the Nairobi City County Environmental Sustainability and Circular Economy Awareness Campaign. And in this, what we want this firm to do is to develop and implement an advocacy communication plan for the Sustainable Waste Management Policy Bill, Electronic Waste Management Strategy, and the Nairobi Waste Management Action Plan. Undertake a curriculum development and training for environmental journalists, conduct training of trainers for waste service providers, identify the provision of media support, creation of content, dissemination, and press clippings. It's a lot of work for this firm. Production of communication, documentaries, and circular economy success stories. So this is a firm that will be working behind the scene to ensure that we really raise the awareness in as far as waste management is concerned within the Nairobi City County. We are going to roll out this. This is a pilot phase for us as a ministry. We want to try with Nairobi City County, and then after this, we will now replicate the same within the other counties to based on the successes that we shall have had using the Nairobi City County as a case study. So we are moving towards that. Actually, the issue of awareness, we are moving towards that, and we shall do it. And then there was an issue of infrastructure from Richard Kainika. Still again, it's like revolving around awareness campaigns and ensuring that everyone is brought on board. Again, that one we are doing it for Nairobi. I hope Richard Kainika is based in Nairobi, and we'll be able to engage with them in ensuring that there is a good infrastructure for a circular economy. The mark of quality, you mentioned something to do with the mark of quality. As I said, we are actually, as a government and as a ministry, we are coming up with the Green Public Procurement Framework, and within this, we are going to identify products and services to start with that are environmentally friendly, but we'll move forward and in fact even engage with KEPSA. Actually, we'll engage with Kenya Bureau of Standards to be able to identify how are we going to do the labeling of the products. I don't think the spirit of this framework is really to lock out anyone, but I think the spirit of the framework is to be able to have those bodies that will do the standardization in terms of eco-labeling and be able now to really assess those enterprises that are currently going on in a bid to providing that quality mark, which is an eco-label quality mark, so that at least that product is now recognized as a green product and find its way even into government offices. I think that is what we are trying to do as a government and as a ministry. So I want to assure that I think we are on course. There'll be a lot of discussion going on and no one will be left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Augustine, for your response. So now I'd like to open it up to Faith Ngige to respond to Mr. Akshu's question about what's currently being done about the materials that we currently use in packaging and how the manufacturers can be reached so that they can know what is recyclable and what is not recyclable. And then Mr. Arpit will give the global perspective on what's being currently done as far as our packaging is concerned to make it much more recyclable. Faith, take it away.
Thank you, John and Mr. Akshi, for the question. Within the partnership, we indeed recognize that capacity and awareness is a challenge. And working together with the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, we have developed 5 training modules. The waste collectors training module, the recyclers module, consumers guide, retailers guide, and producers manual. So these trainings we have organized to take place between September and October because we indeed recognize that capacity and transformational shift of the mind is important, and even just the interpretation of eco-designs and what is the role within the circular economy. So our expectation is that eventually we will partner with the ministry to be able to roll out a bigger curriculum we ensured that the policy recognizes the capacity building and even the establishment of an institute eventually that will just be handling waste management training in the country. So we are still taking baby steps, but we will eventually get there. We can get in touch with you further in terms of just participation and engagement. The only other comment I wanted to add is the issue of the infrastructure, and still within the multi-agency framework at the Ministry of Environment and Nairobi Metropolitan, we engage with the National Treasury, and they have called upon any private sector players that have proposals for public-private partnerships and in waste management to present their proposals, and the National Treasury will be ready to support the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Mr. Arpit?
Yeah, thank you so much, John. First, I'd like to take just a few seconds on the how we have to sensitize. How I've seen globally governments have been doing that. One of the best practice in that case is Zero Waste Scotland, where they actually mobilized all the consumers and they made it feel as a part of their lives to recycle and to return. Unless the consumers return the plastics, it will never get recycled in the end. So that's the same thing has been done in Denmark also with the deposit refund system. And it's surprising to know that they recycle 104% of all the aluminum cans which are there. 4% is the one that are imported in the system. So they actually recycle more than they manufacture. And around 94% of it is plastics. So it's all because the consumers are very sensitized. So unless the consumers are at the upfront of it and feel a part of the movement, it's not going to happen. On Akshay's question, there is a lot to be done on the standards part of it, and we don't really talk about it. Especially in the case of FMCG, the food laws in most of the countries do not allow recycled plastics to be used because there are not enough studies that the food will be safe, or whether the amount of recycled plastic or what kind of recycled plastic has been used to make that container. So there needs to be standards for recyclability to happen in order to be safe. For the SMEs to convince them to do it and for businesses to do it, we need to show them the evidence of profit and business angle to it. And if we do it, I mean, businesses are very intelligent. And if they see profitability and if they see that it's going to, in the end, benefit them, they're going to do it much more than how we can tell them. And they'll be doing it much more innovatively than us ever. Now, another main important thing is which we don't talk about is the design. And that's when designers and the plastic industry takes the role because they are the people who are actually involved in it. And they're the people who are on the ground doing it. So they need to design plastics that do not end up in the landfill. How it is being done globally, like I said in the presentation, a lot of plastic pacts are happening industry-wide, city-wide, where all the stakeholders are brought in together and targets are set, 5-year targets, 3-year targets are set, and they are bound by the targets. And it's not that there is a penalty for that, but they feel it's a movement. And everybody takes part in solving the issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Arpit, for that. And I think when Mr. Arpit was responding also, there's something which I picked up, which we can be able to relate very well with as Kenyans. We are famed for athletics. And if you are famed for athletics, I think I'll take you back to the racetrack. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the 4x4 relays. And in the 4x4 relays, you will definitely see a starter who will run the race, or maybe the 4x1s, hand over the baton to somebody else, and another one, and another one. So circularity, if you want to look at it properly, it's an endless 4x1 race where you run, hand over the baton to somebody else, like that, and it becomes continuous and continuous and continuous. So that's how circularity is all about. So where you are, you could be one of the races, maybe the first one to start, maybe you're the one who is the anchor who runs last, hands over to the other one, like that. So there's a place where you are in circularity. And I think it's very important that you understand where you are, which part that you play. And it's also very important that you understand who else is supposed to be part of that collaborations so that those materials don't fall off the racetrack. So that's where we are. And as you ask your questions also, please reflect on this, pose your question, and then we will be able to respond to that. So I go back, or I come back to you, the listeners, for another round of 2 to 3 questions. And after that, I think we will close it where the speakers will be able to speak and give their closing remarks. And then I'll close out this webinar by giving us the next steps and when you can be able to expect your next webinar. So 2 questions before we close it out.
May I ask another question, John?
Well, you've made it first, actually. Go ahead.
Okay, so this one is on life cycle assessment across different materials that are used in packaging. Either maybe Arpit or Faith could answer it. But is there life cycle assessment being done in Kenya, for plastic, paper, aluminum, glass, whatever other materials, so that we understand how sustainable it is from an energy, water, and other resources perspective to actually recycle one versus the other material?
Maybe Arpit, you can, okay, Faith, would you like to take that? In case you don't take it, I was about to throw it to Mr. Augustine Kendewo.
My understanding of life cycle assessment while training has taken place, I am not aware of any that are started in Kenya, unless John, you correct me, but I haven't come in contact with any person who is doing that, yet we know that it is fundamentally very important in terms of just helping life cycle thinking into the production designs and the whole circularity approach. So that maybe should be our next biggest undertaking. After creating the regulatory frameworks around it, we should be able to focus our mind into that.
Okay, Joe, can I also chip in?
Oh, please go ahead, Mr. Augustine.
Oh, okay, thank you, Faith. I think life cycle assessment of products are actually very important, as Faith has just alluded. We tried within Ruaraka business community, that is Rubicon, and a strategic partnership with the Danish government. It's called Strategic Sector Cooperation with the Danish government through the Danish embassy. And yes, a few companies, we subjected a few companies to life cycle assessment in terms of what they were producing, because we are trying to look at how do we encourage something called symbiotic, industrial symbiosis within the Ruaraka business community. So it was on a pilot phase, and I believe the outcome from there was to inform. There's another research that is being undertaken by Technical University of Denmark and Kirdi, which is called Green and Circular Economy, something within companies of Kenya. It's called KEPSA project. So I think this is something that is in the pipeline. We have not moved into it per se, but it is part of what we are trying to look at so that we see whether we could move towards this phase going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Augustine. Maybe just to chip into that one, my experience with life cycle analysis and life cycle cost comes through, for example, when you're building green buildings, normally there is a requirement through the rating systems that your material, in case it doesn't have an eco label, as a manufacturer, you're supposed to get an environmental product declaration. And basically, to get an environmental product declaration, you have to subject your product to the life cycle analysis, which looks throughout the entire product, how you are able to to extract the materials, how you use the materials, and how do you recirculate most of those materials to make sure that your environmental footprint is as minimal as possible, so that if your material is to be accepted and specified on a project, it actually meets environmental standard. So the only challenge has been that locally, most of the consumers, don't really ask for that. So that is sort of like a let off for the manufacturer, that I can be able to produce and sell my product without somebody consciously asking me whether my product actually meets those requirements. So with the direction that you're taking, for example, what Augustine has said about sustainable consumption of material, now the life cycle analysis is going to be one of those requirements that producer will have to make, because it also looks into your packaging, and you have to explain concisely how your packaging can be able to recirculate and make sure that it doesn't end up in the landfill. So you have to disclose in future, once the extended producer responsibility is in place, that you're actually a member of a PRO, which will be in place in Kenya, and that your product is actually not one of the products that is actually degrading the environment. That's the little that I can speak about that respond to your question, but it's a longer discussion, and I think we are available. Any of the speakers is available, and you can be able to reach them, and they can be able to tell you much more. Thank you. Sorry, Arpit, you wanted to say something?
Just one point on the LCA. I've been reading a lot of LCA studies lately. It's very difficult to compare one LCA study from another. One can say that the glass is more sustainable, and the other can say plastic is. So it all depends on what variables have been chosen. Also, on most of the LCA studies, what they take into the hypothesis is that all of the waste is collected, and that's the problem with plastics. The waste is not collected. So when the waste is not collected, then it does not become the part of the LCA study. They can only study the waste that is collected. So I think when it comes to plastic, we don't need to do a lot of numbers to ascertain the issue. When it comes to aluminum and glass, LCA studies make more sense. But when it comes to plastic, because there are so many leakages, it does not. We don't need to get hidden behind numbers to take any action. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Arpit. So we can take one more question, and then we can bring our webinar to the close with some recommendation and next steps, and of course, when we will be having the next series of our dialogue. So one question, please. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, listeners. It seems like there is no further questions. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give each speaker just a couple of minutes to give your closing remarks, and then we can be able to bring this session to a close. So I will start with Arpit, and then we will have Michael, we will have Faith, and then Mr. Augustine. You can close it out for us, for the speakers.
Thank you, John. First of all, thank you to you and KEPSA and the government of Kenya for inviting me for this. Just quick few points. When we talk about circular economy, we have all these measures and all these policies coming in. We don't talk about indicators on how are we measuring whether the policies are actually working or not, if initiatives are working or not, which is actually required. I have studied some of the indicators, and the best ones are in Colombia and the European Commission. They're actually measuring their progress on a monthly basis, and with a lot of data being collected. So that is very important, which becomes a challenge in informal economies like India and Kenya. So that's something has to be kept in mind. The other thing is that just one quote by somebody I really admire is that anyone who believes that exponential growth can go on forever in a finite world is either a madman or an economist. So we really need to change the way we operate and change the way we make our economy work. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Arpit. Michael?
Thank you. Thank you very much, John, for the opportunity again. And thank you everyone for taking your time to listen to us. I think for me, this is a very important topic. It's new and we are all learning. It's about our future generations, and that's why we need to do a bit more to ensure that we actually make it roll on. It's also about our planet, and it's very important. It's about sustainable development goals, which SDG 12 speaks a lot to it, and we must actually make sure that we progress. I think the time to act is now, and this series and the many more that will come, the actual practices on the ground will actually make us operationalize and make it kick off. It's important to start small, or all of us are learning from it. It's acceptable, I think, to make mistakes as we move along, learn from them, and ensure that it succeeds. I think, as it had been mentioned, partnership in this one is key, and partnership between producers, the users of equipment and materials, the consumers, and government. And at this point, I really want to thank the Ministry of Environment. I think, well, not is said and done. Our involvement, our engagement with the Ministry of Environment in the past has been fantastic.
Seems like Michael's connectivity has frozen, so maybe Augustine, you can go ahead.
As we move on.
Oh, sorry, he's back. No, he's frozen again. So maybe Faith, you can go on, and then Augustine can close out.
I want to appreciate this particular series, and I want to believe, Mr. Augustine being with me, that these discussions are not just discussions because it's a nice thing to do discussions. We will produce these reports and make sure they are part and parcel of the Ministry of Environment output for GGP program, which then informs even our next steps as far as circularity is concerned. Therefore, we commit to be consistent, not to lose focus. We will be dedicated, and our partnerships for economic, social, and environmental change will be very instrumental to helping us realize our end goal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Faith. Michael, maybe if you're back, let me just bring you to close out. I think you were about to finish your presentation, and then I think your connectivity froze. So maybe you can wind up, and then we give Augustine his opportunity.
Yeah, sorry, John, and my apologies. I actually didn't realize that. So not sure where I was, but I really want to emphasize that partnership is key in ensuring that this agenda is moved forward. And I was at a point where I was thanking the Ministry of Environment. I think they've been really very instrumental in terms of partnering with private sector to ensure that the circular economy agenda is pushed ahead. We've had so many strategies, we've had so many drafts of regulations. I think where we are now, we are almost at the tail end, and there's a silver lining in terms of implementation and making them operational. Asante sana.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. So Augustine, to close out the speakers.
Yes, thank you very much, John and colleagues. For me, I have nothing much to add except to say that the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is happy to collaborate with all of you. I can say the plane is on the runway and we are almost taking off. And I can assure you, as a Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we are ready and more than ready to ensure that we transition our economy towards green and circular economy pathway. When nature speaks, it can speak very harshly, as we have seen in the past. And the joy of any government is to ensure that the economy grows, and at the same time, it is inclusive in such that the people that the government is governing actually are economically empowered. So that is the beauty of every government, and that is the strive that we are making. In all this, we must make it as much as sustainable as much as possible. And that is why green and circular economy is actually the thing, the in thing within the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. And as a coordinator on this line, I'm more than ready to engage and to make sure that we push this agenda forward. So the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is in the forefront in providing an enabling environment for this shift towards green and circular economy. So please, as you go back to your homes, ensure that we are more than ready to engage, and we are ready as a government to make sure that we shift our economy and address the impacts of climate change. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Augustine, for closing it out very eloquently there, giving the position of government that you are ready to engage, you are ready to collaborate. You've already demonstrated that by being part of this call. Thank you so much for joining us on this call. And of course, from the various policies that are taking place in the country. Now, before we close, I will play to you again the video about circularity. But for now, as I give my final remarks, it's that there's this economic term which I came across, which is called poverty in the midst of plenty. And basically what that means is that you are poor or you are not reaching your potential, but you are in a resource-rich area, but then you're not able to reach your potential. And the question is, why is that happening? Why is that possible? And I think now this is the time where we get down into that thinking. Circularity or circular economy has actually come in with this thinking that can be able to disentangle us from this poverty in the midst of plenty, where we can be able to create opportunities for entrepreneurs in circularity. We are able to improve our health by making sure that these contaminated materials do not injure our health and we have to spend money on health. And it's also making sure that we end up with places which are environmentally clean and beautiful, creating better places for us to live, work, and play. So I think if we embrace this whole conversation about circularity, we can be able to do that. We understand that the last 2 hours are not enough for us to get hold and understand circularity. And that's why we say that we will create a dialogue series where in the next series, we will be tackling now some other issues. But we feel that before we do so, we'd like to hear from you, all of you, and not even just you, but also the rest of the people who are not part of this, but they're part of your bigger networks, that there is an ongoing conversation, which is very interesting and exciting, and it's the right way to go. And based on that, we'll be able to also play our role in the communication, which Mr. Kanake spoke about, that I think this information needs to reach out to the people. So we also carry a responsibility who are on this call to be able to do that. And where the information was not clear, we are more than happy to receive your emails or your phone calls or your text messages on what can be the next steps you can take within yourself and the role that you are able to play. So now to finish off our webinar, we will be sharing with you when we're having the next one. But now let me play to you again the video. And I hope this time around, I think the audio will be clear so that you can be able to know exactly what our circularity is. Otherwise, we thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, a part of this dialogue for the last 2 hours. And we hope that you will be a part of ours next time. And you'll also invite your friends or your collaborators or people in your networks so that we have a bigger group that we can be able to speak to that can also be able to take action for the next steps when it comes to circularity. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen as I play this video. Thank you so much.
Hi, Alex here. Today's video is about circular economy. It is a term that we hear a lot these days. I was asked many times to make a video about it, so here it is. I will explain what we mean by circular economy. I will go through all the things we can do to go from our current economy to a circular one, and I will use many examples. If you stay until the end, I will share a book with you that you can read to learn more about it. You will see there is way more to it than just recycling. Okay, let's get drawing. When my son was 3 years old and asking his mommy what was this circular economy thing she was working on, here is what she told him. It is when everything is healthy food for something else. So simple and sweet. I loved it. In other words, it means running the economy like nature runs its own business. Plants use carbon dioxide and nutrients to grow and produce oxygen. Animals use oxygen and create carbon dioxide and nutrients. Nothing is wasted. It is a closed-loop system. Circular economy is generally opposed to the linear economy, take, make, waste, we have been running for many years. Some people also use the term cradle to cradle as opposed to cradle to grave. As I explained in my triple bottom line video, the economy is part of society, which is part of the environment. You can click here if you want to watch this video. Now let's look at the economy. We can split into two categories the things that we need to run into closed loops: technical materials, biological materials. Technical materials have this typical life cycle. Raw materials are mined, the product is manufactured, then it is transported to be used until the end of its life. We often tend to think about the end of life and the importance of recycling, and this is true. But for our economy to be circular, there are many things we can do before the end of life. It starts with using resources that are already extracted. Say my product needs copper. It is best to mine copper that is not used anymore, that we also call post-consumer, as opposed to mining some new one from the ground. Especially when you know that 1. Copper is predicted to be mined out worldwide by 2040, and 2. Processing recycled copper uses only 10 to 20% of the energy it takes to process new copper from virgin ore. When manufacturing my product, I can design it so it can easily be dismantled and the copper can easily be recycled next time. I can also manufacture my product so it lasts a long time, so it can be maintained and repaired. I can design it so it uses as little energy as possible. This TED video uses a great example of a tea kettle and the fact that during commercial break of a popular TV show, England has to buy nuclear power from France because millions of people go to the kitchen at the same time to boil an entire 2-liter kettle to make 1 cup of tea. Once a product cannot be used anymore, then it needs to be collected and recycled. Here comes an important question. Does the recycled material maintain its quality to be used for similar applications, or is it downcycled into a material that has a poorer quality? Downcycled was a term from the book Cradle to Cradle. You can find a link in the description below. Remember, in a circular economy, everything is healthy food for something else. Nothing goes to landfill. Biological materials are farmed or collected and then possibly processed and transported before reaching the consumer. Once consumed, they can be used to create biogas, biochemicals, or be composted. Finally, they can go back to nature to restore it. But again, in a circular economy, nothing goes to landfill. Two transition strategies can be very helpful as we're trying to create a circular economy: substitution and dematerialization. Substitution is about using different resources to achieve the same goal. For example, the world is running out of lithium. So, unless we can recycle lithium batteries more efficiently, sodium-ion batteries might be a better option for car manufacturers in the future. Dematerialization refers to using less of a resource to serve the same economic function in society. As an example, Interface is the world's largest designer and maker of commercial modular carpet. But they don't sell the carpet anymore. Their customers buy the service of having carpet on their floor. Interface is in charge of maintaining and repairing the carpet, and they do that very efficiently because it is their specialty and they control the entire process. Using tiles, they can replace only the ones that need replacing. The old tiles go back to the factory to be recycled, where new tiles are made with 98% recycled or bio-based content. How is that for almost circular? Of course, creating a circular economy is only one piece of the sustainability puzzle, and many other aspects have to be taken into account to get 100% sustainable. Climate change, sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, social sustainability, etc. As promised in the beginning, here is a great book I recommend if you want to learn more. It is very well put together and it talks about circular economy in the modern age. I will put a link in the description below. If you found this video useful, please like it, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos. You can help us make more videos to learn about sustainability for free by making a pledge on our Patreon page or by giving us a tip on our website sustainabilityillustrated.com.
Okay, thank you very, very much, everyone. So asanteni sana for listening in. Until the next session, which we will communicate to you. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 John.
Yes.
Here's what I was telling you.
Okay.